statement or question. I'm asking that every panelist, no more than 90 seconds, to share a little bit about themselves to the audience, to give a better picture of who they are and why they're here. And we're gonna start with Raven, and then we're gonna work our way around.
Okay, hey everybody again. I am Raven Alade. I am 29 years of age. I am a St. Louis native, grew up not too far from here. And a little bit about myself is that I am currently a student at Covenant Theological Seminary getting my master's degree. Right now, I just started preparing to see clients as of this week. And I'm here because I'm being obedient to the Lord. I am here because this is a very crucial topic to me. It's a crucial topic to the Lord in the church. And I see most of us are of Black descent in this room. So I think it's a crucial topic in our community. And that we need to talk about healthy singleness as well as healthy relationships in marriage and so forth. So I'm excited to be here, excited to say whatever the Lord speaks, but also learn and just be rooted in Christ in this moment. So I'm grateful to be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Shanise Johnson. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Jerica, for extending the invitation. I told Jerica that I actually have more questions than answers, so I'll take that for what it's worth. I'm a servant leader at heart, and so I'm just here to learn, to glean from everyone, to glean from you and your questions, as this is my daily life as a single woman.
Good afternoon. My name is Gwen. And Jerica asked me to be on this panel because I was single for a very long time. I got married at the age of 42. That's my husband, Dr. Petty. And a lot of people, when I told them I was going to be on a singles panel, they said, "You're not single." And I said, "Well, some people may know how, want to know how to change their status and be married. And they may need a little of the married woman's advice that was single for a very long time." Jerica's my church member, and I just wanted to serve today because normally I'm not a person that likes to be out front, but because Jerica asked, and I feel like I can impart some wisdom about singleness, and so I'm here.
Good afternoon, I am her husband.
My name is Darrell. I'm a recent graduate of Anchor Theological Seminary. That's my wife back there, my son. And I'm a youth pastor at Mount Calvary Church.
Hello everybody, my name is John Robinson. Just a normal guy who served as a ministry, in the ministry of my church. I was asked to come and be a part of the panel. I've been married twice, so I'm on my second marriage. I didn't get married until I was 35, so I'm on my second marriage again already, and I'm 49. So I think I have a lot to offer about being single and being married at the same time. Look forward to seeing you out today.
All right, thank you. So the first question is for Shanise and Raven. What are some things that you enjoy about being single and being a Christian?
Being single, I enjoy spending time with me. I enjoy getting to know myself completely and wholly and just being able to understand my likes, dislikes, wants, desires, and things like that, because I think in life, it is imperative that you know who you are before you even try to venture off into something with someone else. And then being a Christian, oh my goodness, I don't know how to answer that. I wouldn't be here without being a Christian, right? God's blessings are endless, and I'm thankful for His Son Jesus, and that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I think I could piggyback off with Shanise. Honestly, I enjoy with singleness, the benefits. I don't have to check in with nobody. It's just no, I can do what I want when I want. I mean, I gotta ask the Lord, of course. I gotta, make sure I'm in obedience with Him. But I could just go, if I want to go and go on a trip, maybe anywhere. I mean, I'm in school, so budget friendly. But if I can go. And I feel like if I'm married, I will have to, I'm just trying to wrap my head around dang, I'm gonna have to say hey, I'm the one here. And I just don't have to do that now. Like, it would be a great joy, but I enjoy just not having to do those things right now. And the Christian part too is similar. Like, I love being rooted in the Lord, and another thing is like, I can spend a day with the Lord, and I don't have to check in with my husband and say like, hey, I'm cutting off communication for today because I just want to spend time with the Lord. I don't really have to do that right now. I can tell my friends, I can tell my family, but it's different, you know? So it's just these benefits that I see within my singleness that I know that I will have to like consider differently once I'm married, which will be a different gift, but hey, I'm enjoying riding this thing out. So, yeah.
All right, so the next question is for anyone on the piano. How can the church support singles more?
So I feel to say that in Greater Mount Vernon Missionary Baptist Church at 1445 Webster, where the Reverend Bernard Keeley is my pastor, but my church is this big, right? And so one of the things that I look for, hunger for, is activities that will gird me as a single person, because the majority of the church is married or they are elders or something like that. So if we are to spend our time in service to the Lord, if we are to spend our time serving others, those are the things that I look for and desire through my place of worship.
I think one thing I'm thinking about is just like, sometimes I feel like not necessarily individual churches, but the larger church just makes singles feel like they have to be out of singleness. They make them feel like they have to like get married and have the kids and not really just normalize singleness in the church, normalize that people can just live their everyday lives and they don't have to be preparing all the time for that spouse. I think that's a good preparation tactic, of course, but I just think we just need to normalize these different people who are in the church, whether they're single, whether they're married, like normalize us just being present and embodying that existence with one another.
No, let me give them a better context. A better context for everyone to understand that each person in the church is single. So let that soak in for a moment. You are an individual, and each individual is one person. One person is one person, whether there's an association with something that claims to be in a union with someone, you still are one person. You have different social security numbers. You have a different set of fingerprints. Every person is a single individual. The misnomer has been how we are categorized, and that's not how it is set up for the body of Christ. There is no categorization in that regard. Each individual is going to have to answer to him by themselves, so everybody's single. So let's start with that premise to get a sense of freedom out of all of this. Every person in the church is single. So I'm going to say it again so you can get it. In fact, I'm going to ask you to say it. Every person in the church is single. You need to say this, you can hear yourself say, I'm one of many singles. It doesn't matter how many, all of us are. All of us are. So the ultimate goal of the church is to make sure that each person is consistent with who they have been made to be as they seek to try to clarify that. And in seeking to try to clarify that, the peace and security does not come from a relationship with another human. It comes from the peace and reassurance that I'm in line with what I was made to be and do. The challenge is the inability to be humble enough to say, I'm not really sure and I need to delve a little bit more in defining my personhood. And so therefore, that means you have to be shepherded properly. You have to be in a place where you're being discipled so that your alignment is here. Your alignment is vertical and not horizontal. So I'm trying to not say too much at this stage, but I'm trying to give you a very clear context of how this works, of how this really goes, so you can be free and not in bondage and call up and thinking that you're inferior or less than, because you're not. And don't let those sounds trip you, because you're just as significant as somebody who's been married for 105 years. We don't know anybody who's been married for 105 years, but you're just as significant. So let's settle that and don't have this stigma of that I am single. Everybody is.
All right, so the next question is actually directed to you, Hespen. Is there a difference between intimacy and vulnerability? And if so, What's the difference, and how should it show up in developing relationships, especially when we are commanded to guard our heart? Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it.
There is no intimacy without vulnerability, because that's an oxymoron. It is that intimacy, the implication of intimacy means fully exposed. So if we understand intimacy as being fully exposed, then there is none without me being vulnerable enough, without believing I have to hide something from someone. I mean, whatever your package is whatever your package is. And once you become comfortable with you, then it's just some things that don't really apply. Then you don't have to try to measure up, you don't have to do that. So the vulnerability is be honest with God, first of all. Just be honest. You know, I stink, I'm inconsistent, I'm trying to figure it out, I wear a mask, I'm trying to impress somebody. Just be honest. And once you're honest and say, nobody's impressed. Let's be clear, nobody's impressed with you. So should I say it another way? Who cares? So get it right here, and then you're free, because all you have to present is you. You and all your warts, you and all your great things, but they are part of a package. They're part of a package. I'm a great person, I know I am, but I got junk. Are you following it? But I'm great at the same time, but I still got junk. But it's some great junk. And so I can call it great junk. I'm great, but I got junk. But junk doesn't have to be bad junk. You can make it great junk if you take it to the next level yourself. So if you're not vulnerable with God, you can't be vulnerable with another human.
All right, well, go ahead and keep the mic, because the next question is for you too.
Okay.
What does it look like to wait as a Christian who desires to be married?
The problem for people who in their own minds believe that they want to be married, the problem with that is that it is a distorted view of reality, because there has to be a readiness on the part of the person before you infect someone who might already be ready. And so until you get rid of your own toxins, your own strongholds, your own things that are not, you're not eligible, because you'll wreck somebody else's life. So that means I need to, just like you go to a doctor to get a physical, and do you know what they do? They do blood work. They go beyond your words, ask you how you feeling. Well, I'm doing great. When they do blood work, there are some things that come up that you never would say. And they say, there's more to this. So we need to just understand, thinking that I got out of a bad relationship and this one is better, but are you better? So that means get you together to create a level of eligibility. Because the sovereignty of God knows how to connect people. You don't. If so, you'd already have the hookup. Now some of us got the hookup and it's a bad one, because we did the hookup. So it's still a problem. Get you where you want to be, so it can say, I'm presenting me to God as a vessel ready to be used, so that I will constantly check in to make sure that I am not damaging to somebody if I engage them. That's how I wait. And do you know, since he sees everything and knows everything, you don't have to look for anybody. You shall be found. You don't find things you're looking for, you're on the hunt. And you don't need to drop hints while waiting. A certain look, and try to look a certain way, and try to be impressive and super holy. But nobody's interested in a super holy man or super holy woman. You turn people off. Nobody like that stuff. Okay, that's
real. I just wanted to talk about what it looked like for me to wait. I was content in my singleness. And as the Bible says, the woman or man who's single has time, as Raven said, to spend with the Lord. And after marriage, you're going to be looking after the things of your spouse. And so...
Don't believe that. She ain't looking at nobody. I'm on my own. Don't believe that.
So for me, I was content and more into the word, as you said, Raven, into the word and just doing God's work and attending service and just being of service to the Lord. And after I became content, then here he comes. But it's okay, it's all right.
But you wanna tell them what I told you? If she can, I will tell her.
Okay. Totally a big surprise, because as I said, I was content. And this man says to me, God told me you're supposed to be my wife. Like out of the clear blue sky, and I'm like, what? And as I said, I was so content and had never even considered, he was a pastor at the time, marrying a pastor, although I grew up in a pastor's family. So I had to come to terms with the fact that God did prepare me to be a pastor's wife by being in a pastor's family.
Now, she's skipping a whole lot of stuff. So, she's not telling you that she looked at me, she's not telling you that she looked at me like I had 4 heads. She's not telling you that when I was asked her, had she talked to the Lord, she said to me, no. And she was not going to talk to him. She was very clear. I'm not going to have this conversation with him. I don't care what you say. So weeks passed, months passed, and then finally, I just will not forget this, because if I've never been disciplined before, I was definitely disciplined. She said, I said, have you talked to him? And with an attitude, she said, yeah, I talked to him. And he told me yes. I restrained myself from laughing because I already knew. So we never went on a date. We never went on a date. We set a date. So I'm just giving you some ideas. We set a date a couple of months later when she finally became spiritually sane. So in other words, if it's sane to you, God knows if he has your best interest at heart. You may have in your mind, this is the one, this is the person in your mind. But that's your mind, that's your natural mind. And it's based on appearances and the visual and the sounds that you hear, but it hasn't gotten down to that third level. I guess I'm going further, but I need to get here. The third level, the third level would tend to say my mental, emotional space in my physical body has the underlying process of a spirit, and unless the spirit is aligned with what he says, then my intellect and my emotions will drift me away from what he says, and I'll miss him every time. I'll miss him because I'm feeling a certain way, and my emotions are controlling me. And the worst thing you can do is to be led by your emotions. You just want to acknowledge them, but do not be led by them because they'll set you up. Just acknowledge them, but don't be led by them because you're too fickle. You're flipped. You know, smiles and frowns come out of the same lips, and you can go from just like that. So, you can't do that stuff. You just can't do that stuff. Slow you down, and let somebody else help to walk you through. And here's the other thing, ladies and men, ladies don't talk to another lady about a man. This wasn't even a question, but I have to tell you. Ladies, don't talk to another lady about a man. A woman can't vet a man, only a man can vet a man. You'll be too emotional. Let a man drill him, because one man knows if another one drills him, his game is gone. Now you understanding it? Yes. It's a whole lot of men been driven away from some young ladies who talked to me about somebody interested in them because I said, let me talk to you. And by the time we're done with them, they're done. Now you understand, you cannot vet a man, women. I don't care how smart you are, I don't care how successful you are in your career. You cannot vet a man. Whoa, man is not a man. Okay, so.
All right, so you guys kind of got into the next question, but there are other married people on the panel, so if you could tell us about your relationship journey and how it led to marriage. In addition to that, what did your waiting season look like?
That waiting season, for me, was simply being vulnerable and transparent today for these Christian people. For me, I wanted to be married, but I wasn't ready for marriage. Let me start here. Sin shows up. And when you try to unite with someone in marriage, wherever you are is going to show up. When you build a lot of trauma, today I'm studying not just God, but therapy. A lot of us haven't dealt with our issues as far as trauma, especially me. And if you don't deal with those things, if you don't deal with your sin, if you don't deal with the thing that you need to deal with, you don't need to be married. So that waiting season for me should have been therapy, should have been seeking God more, should have been being okay with being single, but I wanted to be married. I wanted to be married because I didn't grow up in that type of household, but it was something it was an idea that I had, but I wasn't prepared for it. And so that waiting season for me should have been a lot of preparation. So I made a lot of mistakes in my first marriage, and I've made a lot of mistakes in my second marriage.
I met my wife at a church convention, and it was just in passing. We had a mutual friend. My wife is tall, I'm tall. She was like, "Hey, y'all both are tall. I think y'all should get together." And it didn't just happen like that. There was some time, I think a couple of years before I reached back out to her. But I slid in the DM, what that means, through social media. And I'm not a nervous person, but we text through Facebook for like 4 or 5 days. And she was like, "Okay, when are we gonna have a conversation?" And I just yelled, I gotta, actually be vulnerable, And so I get on the phone, and this is my voice, how I talk. But I got on the phone and I was like, "Hello." And that's at the point my hands started hurting, we're trying to take the phone. So we talked for a while. We talked for about a few months, and then we got engaged. We were engaged for a year, and then we got married. She's from Mississippi. I'm from here from St. Louis, so we lived in Memphis for about a year, just to be somewhere neutral where she can get to her family. And then we decided to come back to St. Louis. We had some struggles. If I could just include this in that, before I started dating her, I was talking to another young lady, and she wanted somebody else, but I was kind of like the rebound guy. And once I decided to move on from her, I started pursuing my wife, and she wanted to come back in the picture. And she started telling me, "Oh, I had a dream. The Lord showed me us in an excavator. We both had on hard hats, and we were building together." And this is after she and I got together. And I asked her, I said, "So what do you think that means?" "Oh, the Lord said we're supposed to build something more than friendship." Now either you lying or he lying. I know you can't lie. And it was some subliminal, and it's just a generational thing. It was some subliminal posts on Facebook. We went through it all. The girl was trying to talk about my wife and all that kind of stuff, but I said it to say it was a journey. And I had to learn. You asked about the waiting season. All of my friends got married before I did. every single last month. And it was sort of like, we all go out to eat, everybody say, well, you know, how's the check gonna be, you know, distributed? Us two are together, me and her are together, and I'm like, it's just me. It's like the fifth wheel, you know, and I was like, Lord, I'm living right, I love you. When is my turn gonna come? I want some. And you know what? And you have to be specific with the Lord. That's right. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, we know that. But I told him, Lord, I don't want no ugly wife. And it seemed like the one that was after me weren't the prettiest. You know, in my eyes, they weren't the prettiest. You know, and I'm just like, now I ain't the ugliest, but I ain't the best, but I ain't the ugliest. But I know what I want, you know, and I'm gonna wait for what I want, you know. Have you ever had a craving for a certain food? You know, you want Popeyes and somebody bring you McDonald's, and like, I eat it, you know, but it still don't satisfy. It's not what you want. And so the best thing for us to do as singles is to wait. And it's the best decision. My grandfather told me something once. I was in a service and this young lady walked by. I mean, she was gorgeous. And my head was like an owl. I followed her all the way up the aisle. And my grandfather just leaned over and said, son, everything that glitters is not gold. And so you have to be careful in your waiting season that things that look glittery and shiny is really fake. It can sometimes be fake.
Yeah.
So for those who are single, what have been some challenges as you navigated singleness?
I don't know where we start with that, but it's just challenges. It's challenges in making sure, I'm gonna use the word seek. So Pastor made a good point about vetting, right? We all have intentionality, right? Most times when you're meeting someone and trying to get to know them, but are they saying the things that you want to hear, right? Because you told them already versus listening, right? We desire to have companionship. We desire to not go on that trip with your girlfriends, but you want to go with your husband and things like that. So because our desires are, it's just very, very, you can get caught up in your own way, basically. Because you want something, you have this, I'm gonna say laser focus on becoming one with someone, and so you try to put all the things in place and be all those things as a girlfriend, and that creates a whole nother situation that we're not talking about right now. But I'm saying, we just have to stay focused. Tell me the question one more time.
What has been some challenges as you navigated singleness?
Okay, so I didn't call any specific ones other than the fact that we don't want something to appear one way that it's not. So that person that you mentioned, she knew what to say because she thought you wanted to hear that, right? And so we have to be extremely careful with hearing or listening to someone saying the things that they think we want to hear because they know our value.
One challenge when I was less content in singleness was the fact that waiting. I didn't want to keep waiting. I was asking the Lord constantly, like, Lord, hey, now, getting to that societal standpoint where now I'm 29, but I was like, okay, 25 came, not married, but not married yet. Like, the years keep going, Lord, not married yet. When he gonna come? So, like, really, like, just pleading with the Lord, like, okay, I had this idea because I had such an idea of what I thought my life would look like, and when it didn't happen, I'm like looking at the Lord like, what's going on? And so I think just the idea of waiting for longer than I thought I would have to wait, and then just I'm one of them people, I don't know if there's anybody in the room, but I thought I knew who my husband was when I was in a previous relationship, and going through that turmoil of finding out that, oh, this wasn't the person. And I found out that the person was, when I thought I had this last moment, he ended up like being married or getting proposed. He was proposing to his girlfriend, so I knew he wasn't the one. So just like different circumstances and different situations I was in showed me how, oh, this is really not my fight. This is yours, Lord. And like being content in him and getting to the point where I can lean onto him, because I was so wrong about my whole dating situation. So it's freeing to know that, one, everybody is single, but two, that the Lord really orchestrates every step. And I don't have to keep trying. I don't have to keep being the one that's trying to be my own guide with my life, because that takes too much time, and he has too much purpose in my life if I just allow him to be God and allow myself to be a servant and a child of his.
Back off what she said about being content. I was talking to a young lady, and you know how it is when y'all start having those late night conversations. You just feel like you're in love, and you don't want to hang up the phone. You hang up first, all that kind of stuff. And I woke up one day, and she posted on Facebook a ring on her finger, and I was like, am I looking at the screen right? You know, is this her hand, or is this somebody that she know? I'm trying to get some clarity here. You know, and come to find out, she had gotten engaged, and we had just talked like 2 nights prior. And I was like, you know what? I'm sick of church folks. I'm sick of black folks. I'm gonna go over to Asia and I'm tired of it. But you have to be content, like she said. You have to be content with yourself, because then you'll start comparing yourself of how other people have gotten in relationships and what their relationships was like. And then when you finally get into one and it's not clicking how you thought it should, you come to find out some of the people that you thought had picture perfect marriages or picture perfect relationships are going through turmoil. You know, they husband beating on them, wife cheating on them, calling them. It's all kind of stuff. So be content and don't look for somebody else's happily ever after to be your happily ever after.
I'm glad you used the word contentment. I want to emphasize this a little bit. Contentment it puts you in intense school. In Philippians 4:11 and 12, it says, I have learned. I have learned. You only learn in an educational environment, and there are screenings and exams and tests that you have to be exposed to in order to determine your proficiency. So therefore, when it says, I have learned how to be without, how to have more, how to have excess, I know what it's like to be here, to be there. In other words, there is a process that contentment cannot be sought by requesting it of God. By saying, God, give me contentment. That's not what the deal is. The deal is you have to go through a series of James chapter 1, where it says it is the trying of your faith that will produce perseverance, and then it gets you ready that as I become more confident in rejecting what is not right and embracing what is, now I'm learning what contentment is. When I'm in an exciting time, I know what that means. When things are not so great, I know what that means. I know I'm okay when I'm not with somebody, and I'm okay if I'm around a crowd, because so it's just that I'm learning. And until you pass the exam, you never will be content. And some of us are so anxious that we can't learn. We have ADD. We have spiritual ADD. We have spiritual attention deficit disorder, and can't pay attention to what's being said. I have learned. So what's the solution to that? You got to dig deep in the Word. You got to get in the Word and close your eyes and stop looking at people, because your eyes get you in trouble. Your eyes, you have dancing eyes. I mean, I can look and tell when a woman has dancing eyes and a man has dancing eyes. I can just look them straight in the face and tell they have dancing eyes. They can't pay attention. They just can't pay attention. I'm looking at dancing eyes right here in this room right now. I'm just telling you. I can start saying, your eyes just all over. I mean, I'm just looking. You say, why am I saying this? Because I've been doing this over 35 years, counseling people and doing all of this. In fact, longer than many of you are old. I have been doing this in 1981. Coaching and counseling and looking at and premarital and courtship, emphasizing all these things. I have counseled people who have been married 50 years in their 80s, and they had unresolved issues in year 50 that was never addressed from year 5. So I'm just trying to give you some idea. You have to learn contentment. And even when things don't go your way, you're okay with that too. You don't have fits. You don't have fits. It's like, I have learned. Until you can say that, until you can say, I'm okay, even if nothing changed, because contentment does not mean I'm satisfied. There's a distinction. This satisfaction means I still pursue goals, but I'm content right now until the next phase kicks in, so I'm okay. So I won't get frustrated because this hasn't happened, because I'm okay. I'm still pursuing, but I am okay. I press the award tomorrow, but I'm okay in the meantime. I'm okay being broke, and I'm okay having more money than I can spend. I'm okay either way. I'm okay if somebody likes me, and I don't give a blank if nobody likes me. Are you following this? Like right now, I don't care what none of y'all thinking. Right now. Y'all follow what I'm saying? Let's be clear. Let's just preface here. Think whatever you want to. That's not going to change where I am. I'm still going to keep on walking and keep on talking. You follow what I'm saying? Because what you're getting right now is me. And you can like it or lump it. I'm still going to be me in spite of what you think, how you said, how you decided, who made you think he's saying it, who does he think he's talking to. I'm talking to you.
So the next question is for anyone to answer. What does it mean to live a pure life?
Well, I feel like I could be the poster child for that. I grew up in a strict Christian household, and I would say I lived a pure life until I got married. So I don't normally tell that in public settings, because then your homeboys be dogging you out, But I lived a pure life until I got married, and it helped because when I got with my wife, I wasn't comparing her to other people. I wasn't saying I wish she would do this like so and so did, Now I'm not saying I, didn't kiss or nothing like that, but.
But we know your granddad didn't see it. So I'm vouching for him because I know the 3 generations. So I'm literally vouching for him from knowing granddad, dad, and him. So I've seen it. Everything he's saying is actually true. And I can confirm that. Okay.
Now, I will say it was hard. It wasn't easy. It was hard, but it was a decision that I had to make. And my wife, she was pure. That's what she told me. But it was worth the wait. It was worth the wait because now when we look back on our lives, think about all the people we could have slept with, or we could have, been with, all of the mistakes that we could have made, it wasn't worth the headache that could have came from it. So, I don't gloat in it, but I'm proud that I chose the path for my life.
So pure does not mean faultless. So let me clarify. It does not mean faultless. It means in pursuit of the heart of God. Are you following it? The clause, 1 John 1:9, the clause says, if we confess, he's faithful to cleanse us. So we could mess up and get clean. So because I'm in pursuit of, and he knows that we probably will do something, or he would not have put that clause there to say, oh, I know you're gonna mess up, so let me just tell you, come to me and be honest, be transparent, be vulnerable. You messed up, say it to me, I will forgive you. Now let's keep it moving.
And just to throw in, like the scripture remind me of the Beatitudes is just blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And so in that, messing up, going to God, having that conviction, that is a sign of your purity. And walking and moving forward after that conviction, that's a sign of your purity. So not allowing yourself to feel that shame or like let the enemy get in your mind, but remembering to continue on with the things of the Lord after you make your mistakes because we live. That's a sign of your purity for sure.
All right, and this is for anyone as well. How has your relationship with Christ grown over time?
My relationship with Christ grew from when I was a person who needed a lot of validation. And when I found out that my esteem did not have to be in anything but in who I am in Christ, that changed everything. I don't have to be anything for anybody. All I need to do is be like Christ. Be humble, be obedient. Follow what the word says, so my path will be straight. And a lot of growth came from being married. As I said, I was content. I was, if I never get married, I'm okay. If I get married, I'm okay. And the book called Choosing God's Best, I actually read that on the honeymoon. We went to a bookstore and I found that book. And I found out that you need to be who God said you should be before you get married. So there were some things, I had some insecurities and some things that really caused me to have some issues and problems when we got married. And a lot
I don't remember any of it. I don't know.
Yeah, he always says he
I don't
doesn't remember, but yeah. Yeah, as with all marriages, you know, there were ups and downs. But I had to come to the end of myself. I realized that I had to work on me and not look at him. And so that caused me to have a lot of growth, a lot of praying, a real tight relationship with the Lord, just seeking the Lord, like, oh, I can't stand it. But yes, I did grow a lot in my personal journey because I realized that I had to come to the end of me. So I came to the end of me because I got married. Amen.
So growth is continuous. Growth is daily, right? And so we're all working on us. And so I think the growth over time in being a Christian is being real with yourself, with God. So like, you know, we try to hide ourselves from God. We a mess and all of that. He sees all, knows all. So once we walk into that understanding and realization, and then we can take the mask off and really deal with us with the Lord. So to me, that's the growth. But every day, it's something. Every day, it's us trying to be better than we were yesterday. In fact, in the moment, trying to be better than I was 2 minutes ago because of what I'm gleaning from you.
So I wanted to mention this from a shepherdology perspective to kind of understand the context. A sheep can't shepherd themselves. So as a result, there is no spiritual growth independent of a pastor and under the watch, Hebrews 13, who has watch over your soul. You need to be in a biblical instructed environment with an emphasis on discipleship, because that's the only way you will grow. Now, you can read every devotional you want, you can read the Bible 10 times a year, but you're on your own and you can't make yourself accountable. We will not make ourselves accountable. We will do we grade by the curve when it comes to us as individuals. So if you're not in an accountability relationship in a local assembly where a pastor will get on your head, you will not grow and mature, because the word teaches that. Feed the flock of God. Feed them, and you can't prepare your own meal. I know how deep and how spiritual you are. I do understand. It seems like it ought to be. But that is not how God has said it. That's the conclusion we have come up with. He says you are fed because he made them, he appointed them, and he did it because, and they are not an idol, they are not a God, because they're going to keep directing you to them so that you can grow and you will be made accountable and you'll be challenged to come out of your comfort zone. It's some things you have in your own mind. Do you know that's why some folk won't say to the pastor, because they know it'll get checked. They go on and do it otherwise, because if they brought it, they know it'll be like, oh, this ain't right, but I like it. But you would rather. Now Now, I have been ordained in ministry 40 years, but I have a pastor. Me personally, that I go, I sit down, and I meet with, and some know this, but most don't. I have given him my coattail. I put it in his hand in order to say, you have a right to snatch me if it ever appears that I'm not right. Because other people are being held accountable to me, so I have to be accountable. 1 Corinthians 11:1 said, be ye imitators of me as I imitate Christ. So you need to be in an environment. Now don't be staying in no church just because your family was there and just because you like it and because you're prominent and you're important and you're significant and all that. If you're not growing, if you're still tripping off the same thing you've been tripping off, you are in the wrong place. You're in a ceremonial place that's going nowhere fast.
You have to start at a certain place, right? And for my personal growth, I had to recognize my sin. I had to recognize my trauma. I had to recognize that in order for me to get to whatever that pinnacle is, holiness, I have to grow, right? But I cannot get there until I deal with this sin, right? And dealing with that sin, man, again, it's trauma-filled, right? Because we've all been through something. May it be neglect, may it be abandonment, may it be lack of validation, and then also to grow from that understanding, being able to be transparent about your trauma, right? Being transparent about your shame, because we all have that. And until you deal with that, you will not grow, right? You gotta deal with that first. You gotta deal with that sin first. You have to deal with that trauma first. And then we can experience some growth.
So you have to excuse me for jumping, but I have these multiple hats that I have to help us as much as we can. He just talked about something. So many of us don't even understand that we have been traumatized. We don't know that because we learn how to, the clinical term is called stuffing or suppressing. And which what we do is we put a lid on it and don't let it come out. It's there, we heard and we know it, we just don't want people to know it, so we cover it up and we live past it until we get triggered by something that somebody else did or said. Now we're wondering where it came from. Well, it was an unresolved something that's not there. Just get this, if you don't remember anything else I say today, whatever you've not been healed from controls how you live. It runs your life. It literally runs your life because you're protecting yourself from getting hurt in that same area. And we do all types of mental, spiritual gymnastics to avoid people knowing where we're flawed. Yeah. So I don't want you to think of a certain way from me. So I'm gonna have that look. You know that look. Yeah. That look that we wear, that church look, that holy look, I'll shout louder, jump higher, so you won't think that I'm unspiritual. Whereas I'm crying on the inside, but I can't tell you that because you might look at me funny. But that's why when you get in a place and you under the word, under that microscope of Hebrews 4, when it says the word of God is quick and powerful and it will cut you up. And you cannot run. You cannot run. So that's why some folks want to run into a church where they can run out so nobody can say anything to them. Run in and run out. I did my due and I'm out of here. But it's like if you want to grow, you got to stand in the space and get cut up. Get cut up to get cleansed. Cut up to get, and the problem is, some of us don't want to change. We want to get better without the change, and that's a false premise. It's a false premise. You're still jacked up. And everybody knows it. Some people just don't want to tell you. But you want somebody to tell you, you're not right. You are not right. You lie. You're less than honest. You talk out both sides of your mouth. You're phony. You ain't no good. You just ain't no good. I don't care what you look like on the outside. Matthew 15 says, if your heart is not right, your practice is going to expose you. So now, I guess you say, well, I didn't think I was coming here for this. Yes, you did. You just did. We're here to get skint, twisted, to be better off and tell somebody so that we got one thing on our mind, This one thing, Philippians 3 says, this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, I'm pressing toward the mark of the high call. Because otherwise, what's behind you will trip you, but you got to deal with it. And so while we're at it, Jerica, I'm just taking over everything, but let me just give you all this. Yes, see my personal assistant here said I knew you would, so whatever. Whatever. I'm going to give you an out as to how everybody can be healed today spiritually. I'm going to tell you how. Now, if I was charging you, you'd have to pay $1,000 to come to a conference. So I'm about to tell you how to get it. Well, I'm going to tell you how to get it. You need one sheet of paper and you need something to write. So I'm going to use this aisle as an example. I'm going to use this aisle because this aisle is your place of freedom. Look at this aisle as being where you are and where you want to go. Look at this aisle as being where you are and where you want to go. What you have to do is to write down on one side of the paper everything you don't like about yourself. Be very honest. Whatever you don't like about yourself, you need to write it all down. Here are the 550 things I don't like about me or that I want to improve on. And you have to be very honest. Just write them all down. And you're not going to have to show this to anyone, so that's why you have to be honest with yourself. Here's what I don't like about me. I'm not okay. This is an area I need to get better, and you need to write it specifically out to know exactly what it is. This is your diagnosis. Your diagnosis. You need to have a diagnosis in order to get a prognosis. The diagnosis has to be, this is where I'm not at my best. And to be very honest about it, to be able to jot it all down. The second part to that then says, here's why I haven't dealt with it. There again, you gotta be honest. Here's why I haven't dealt with it. The diagnosis is what the doctor comes and tells you. I need to tell you this so you can really hear it. Now what you're doing, you're writing it down and you're asking yourself, do I really want to deal with it? Do I really want to deal with it? That's that second part. Why haven't I done anything? Do I really want to? This is where you have to make a decision. They could tell you that you need surgery and you could say, I'm not going to do it. But they have given you the diagnosis to say, if you do this, this is the outcome. The prognosis would say, instead of my stuff I don't like, over here now is what I'm going to start to do. And you can't make a global decision about individual things. It has to be specific to what you wrote. Specific. It can't be a global, I'm going to change what I'm doing. No, that doesn't work. Specific to what you say. I need to say, instead of this now, this is what I'm about to do. That's my prognosis. My prognosis says, if I do this, then what was controlling me in my diagnostic stage no longer is, because over here now will become the distinction. And I don't ever have to go back to the diagnosis because I've identified it. Here's my response. This will be the outcome. This will be the outcome. Now, you can say, I don't believe it. Yeah, well, that's part of your diagnosis. You're too self-assured, you're too arrogant, you're unteachable, so you probably need to put that down. I have an unteachable spirit because I'm not going to let anybody tell me anything. So that probably need to go over on that other side. I need some humility is what I need because I'm not trying to hear what you're saying. Well, you got a pee-pee. You got a personal problem. So you need to go over here and write that down. I got a personal problem. I don't understand. So I need to go over here and say, I got the answer already. Obviously I don't because I'm not okay. If you put down one thing, then that says I'm not okay, so you just lied. So therefore you need to be very specific, detail by detail by detail by detail by detail. And when you put this over here, you'll be able to see it because it's called the principle of replacement. What I put over here on the other side will override my original diagnosis. It will override because I won't be practicing that anymore. Every time I have that thought of doing the other, I'm going over here to this. You know, when you judge somebody, that's your tendency. Then instead of judging, now I need to go over here and look to see what's good about them. If I'm really gonna make a change, I'm not gonna judge how I see people dress. Now, some folk got some opinions about how some people are dressing here today. Some people got some opinions. They've sized some folk up, they've looked at them and trying to determine what were they thinking when they came in here. I already know that. If we're gonna be honest. If that's the thought, then I have to say, what do I need to do instead of that thought? What do I need to do instead? Rather than judging them, should I celebrate the uniqueness that God has done, just the way I want them to see me as being unique? I shift it, I change it. That's how you move from that place to this other place. Or the habit that you develop, you'll go right back to it again. Right. Without thinking about it, it will be a reflex. It'll be like a reflex. Under pressure, we go back to our default. Your default is your diagnosis. That's your default. This is what I know. This is what I do. This is what I've always done. Under pressure, you'll go back to your default unless you've shifted and made a change. Now, we just did group therapy.
Cognitive behavioral.
Yeah, CBT is what she's talking about. That's what we just did. We just took you all through group therapy. Those who grasp it are better off. Those who don't, you'll find yourself saying, I'm doing the same thing I was doing.
Yeah.
But you don't have to, because you have a solution now. But you can't make anybody do it. They have to decide that they want to do it. So if you say you really want to get better, then this is what you'll do. Then this is what you'll do. And how you can tell you're doing it? You won't be going back to other folk complaining about what you've been complaining about before, because you'll be doing something different. If you find out you got that speed dial to somebody you've been talking to about the same thing all the time, what that says is you really didn't want to change. You just like to hear people talk to you, and well, it goes on and on from there.
Is it okay for a woman to approach a man she's interested in?
No.
I say no. And when young ladies ask me that, I say no. Because if you do, then, well, this is just me. I think you'll be looked at as somebody that's desperate. And then things will be expected of you that are going over, above, and beyond. And the other thing is that a woman has, maybe don't correct me, has everything to lose. All the things that can happen to you are some things that may not happen to their man. So I always told young ladies no, and I've never done that. If he doesn't say anything, even if I liked him, I'm not saying anything.
You can't back and ran behind me. What you talking
Yeah, and the man is supposed to be the pursuer, not the woman.
I agree. That the woman should not pursue. But if I could play devil's advocate for a moment, I think it's okay to let the man know that there's an interest. Don't call him, text him, what you doing, where you at, can I get your name, can I get your number? Because men like to be chasing. But if you walk by and you give him a little eye wink or something like that.
Now, what does actually that wink look like?
You know how to flirt. So, yeah, I agree with that completely.
Yeah, like, it's okay to show interest, but as far as chasing and pursuing.
So if you're gonna show interest, then take him to a man. You're following it? Yeah. You said I'm interested, but don't leave him to yourself. Take him to a man. Because you be seen as bought and sold if you don't. We just want to tell you about how it operates on the street. You're seen as bought and sold, and I can play you now because you've already indicated an interest, so I can charm you into. Okay, well, that's this, but this is the drill.
Tell us, come on.
Now here are the men's secrets. Let me tell you about it. Okay, I'll leave one or two off, but let me just tell you what to tell. As long, see, a man by nature is a predator. By nature. He chases to conquer. By nature. If he isn't a man that's been subject to God, he just has this conquering desire down inside to see how soon and how many. Just here. Because players play. Now all men are players until they've been transformed. Are you hearing me? Yes. The nature of such, because they were designed to be predators. They chase like the jungle. They chase, they see, they have a target, they identify, they size up, they listen, they ask questions, they find out what the weaknesses are, find out what the vulnerabilities are, and then they attack. That's the natural nature of a man. That's just the way that it is. So when you throw that little feeler out there for him, your security blanket is another man because he realizes he don't have total access to you. If he knows he has total access to you, you are done. You are done. I don't care how assertive you are. I don't care how strong you think you are. You got no chance when that predator put that charm on you. Because here's the deal. His ultimate goal is to touch you. Is to touch you. Because he knows if he can just touch you, if you give him access to touch you, you are done. Mm-hmm. You just want to know the truth. You are done. When you give him access to touch you, you have given him everything you can give to him because now he's gained total access. That's the reason why. That's the reason why you don't want to get a man's number. You don't want his number. You don't ever want it. Don't give him your number ever. Don't ever give him your number. Don't give him your email. Don't friend him on any social media. None of that. Because you got to vet them. You got to vet him. Because you got to remember, until you know he has been defanged, you want to have nothing to do until he's defanged. Because he can't gum you to death, but he can fang you to death. You got the picture, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
If we're dating intentionally, when on a first date and getting to know the person, should be a line of organic questioning or interrogation, meaning you ask the hard questions first to get them out the way. Overall, how should a first date go?
All right, I'm going to respond to that. I'm just going to say it quickly and then let them get to it. You don't date anybody.
Right.
Dating is off the table. Dating is fraudulent. Dating is a misrepresentation because it presents an image of something that's not real because you don't know the backstory. So when you make yourself available for dating, you're setting yourself up. Everything's in order. You're looking your best. You meet them at a certain time. Your hair and everything is in order. You've nailed up, you've toed up, you've done everything you need to do. And they've got this picture perfect experience of you, and they have not experienced your bad breath. They've not experienced your bad hair day. Let me just keep going on and on and on. Do I need to tell you? They haven't seen you when you wake up, when your eyes hardly come open. They haven't seen you. You don't have the backstory. So dating is fraudulent. Because I meet you at these places, I've done everything, I got these certain aromas, I've got these certain scents, I prep myself, I'm looking at certain because I'm selling something. I'm selling something. So you don't date. You only court. Which means You can only court one person at a time, and you don't court anybody until the decision is already made, proper vetting to say, we've got one thing in mind, a permanent relationship. You don't take tours. You don't go on safaris. Okay, so now whatever you want to say about dating, now you are.
All right, so if you do have a question, we're gonna come to you for the, is there any way that has a question? Because if not, I got questions for days.
You got a hand.
All right. Yeah, can you?
So could I just got my Psychology Today magazine 2 days ago. I want to show you what's in it. Could you hold it up so they can see that? Okay, now how about this for timeliness?
Right.
Okay? This is timeless to talk about as a challenge. But then also show what's on the front cover. What's on the front cover is showing your perks or your quirks or your superpowers. In other words, be you. So this is coming just from the natural studies of it all. It's not a coincidence that this just got to me a couple of days ago to give you some idea about the challenges that people deal with on a day-to-day basis. Just enjoy.
Okay, so my question is, what is the difference between courting and dating?
Simple. Dating is sampling. Courtship is exclusive.
Dating is with a temporary end in mind. Courtship is with marriage in mind as an end game.
I had a question for the panelists. It was just real quick. What do you all think, especially like with the current generation of online dating with Christians?
Let's go back to the original premise of courtship versus dating.
Or even like just in the name of courtship?
Right, so conversation only is conversation only, and you need to have a pathway clearly defined to keep it on the road of, I love the Lord more than I could ever possibly love you. You're not that important to me if you're not an asset. So I have to, so right now what I'm doing, I'm interviewing for asset development. So it's about asset development right now. And if you're not bringing anything to me, I know where I'm going already. So if you can't accelerate it, then that means that our conversation is already ended. So what I would be doing is, if I'm gonna be talking about courting somebody, I have to find out first of all, are they in a Bible teaching church and subject to somebody? I'm going through this criteria. First of all, tell me where you are. How long have you been there? Well, what does your private discipline look like? Are you accountable to an individual? Are you actively involved in doing something that's helping other people? It's not just to get you something out of it. So these are just preliminary questions. And if they don't check all these boxes, it's nice talking to you. That's my last conversation. There will not be another conversation because they failed already to meet the criteria to be an asset.
I used to be totally against it as a way that Christians should meet someone. However, I have to say that I know several people that it worked for.
Yeah.
So I've kind of changed my mind on that. And these are Christians, and they're still married.
But that's with the context of what I'm saying. I just love it. We're not going to become so Romeo and Juliet about this. We seriously talking about you got to vet. That's right. All right, that's what we're talking about. Okay, meet them anywhere. They can fall out of the sky and hit you in the head. I mean, that's okay. But it's after that. It's after that initial eye to eye. Actually, and we don't have time for this. There are 12 stages of intimacy. So, the first one is eye to eye. I'll just stop right there. We get so overwhelmed with eye to eye, and we so caught and forgot there's a whole lot of other stuff. The first one is just, I got your attention. That's all it is. But it's a lot of other stuff that gets your attention. That's why you can't rely on eye to eye. If I was just, having my baby, we can make beautiful children, whatever. Nobody.
I can send everybody all the 12 stages. I have them. I'll email them to you.
No, don't do
Don't
that.
send it?
No, they need to come to me.
I'll send you guys an
The
email.
reason why they need to come to me, because what will happen is they think they could digest it quickly and they're ready and they still are not.
All right.
Right, that's the reason why I say, I got it, got 12, but what'll happen, they'll get stuck. They'll still get stuck in the I part.
Okay. So then I'll send him your contact information and y'all reach out to him, let him know that y'all want him
Now,
to
send it to them. In order to set up time. Okay, that way to set up time, because they will need clarity, because it's like, I'm, this stuff, hey, you gotta remember, it's wild out here. It's a jungle out here. You gotta understand, it's a jungle out here.
All right, sounds good. Well, we got another question over here. And anybody else that has questions, please raise your hand so we can come to you with a mic.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. So, for you that were remarried, you went through the process of healing, you dealt with your stuff. How do you get past the fear of still bringing something in or baggage in from that prior marriage?
It's a continuous process. It's a continuous pruning. It's a daily activity, because it's kind of like alcoholic or drug addiction. Like, it's still present, right? But you have to just keep recognizing and keep it at bay, because things keep surfacing, the sin keeps coming out. So it's a matter of being aware of where you are in your trauma. It's a matter of, again, about being transparent and showing up with your authentic self. So if you're struggling, let your partner know that you're struggling. Let your community know that you're struggling. Let your pastor know that you're struggling, right? And get that help. Because it's to the end, you have to be the right person to understand that you have trouble, to understand that you have struggles, right? And they have to understand that you have shame, right? And so it's just a continuous thing.
So let me do that. I'm going to take what he said, I'm going to take it to another level. Your partner can't help you with your pain. They can support you through it. Those are not the same thing. They can only support you because it's your pain. And you got to own your pain. And you got to deal with it, because if you don't deal with it, you'll pamper it, you'll baby it, and then that monster grows and gets worse, because it's got to be extracted. It's got to be extracted to say, this tooth is bothering me so much, I'm tired of putting something on it to dull the pain. I need to get this thing taken care of, or it's coming back again. Coming back again. Again, what we said is, what we're not here from, that thing will keep aggravating, it will keep on going. So I got to deal with it. I got to deal with it. I mean, you heard her say that she had to, she had to have her own come to Jesus meeting. She had to have her own come to Jesus meeting, and then when she had that, it all changed. She figured out she was the best man in the world after that.
I believe we grew as a marriage.
I ain't grown none.
Yes, we did. We grew tremendously. Yes, we did.
We grew as a couple.
We grown. But so again, 2 Corinthians 13:5 says, examine yourself. Examine. And I would be honest. Hey, this is, and I gotta be honest with me. Then Romans 12 said, present you. When it says present, it means present your whole personhood, everything about you as a living sacrifice. And that means, again, it's like going to the doctor, you get a complete physical and say, well, I need to tell you about this. If you keep doing it, this is going to become bad. And the question is, will you keep surviving, or do we take the next level and start thriving? You can survive all day long, but the thriving says, whatever was hindering me has got to go. It has got to to go. You got to understand, there might be, part of your problem might be you got some of the wrong people who've been in your life too long, too close to you. And they have to reinforce the thing you nurse. Because you've given them too much access to you. That doesn't mean you discard them, but you got to put some boundaries in place and say, hey, we used to hang out, but now I know you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, you understand it? I know you. We don't hang out anymore. Because when I hang around you, oh, things happen. Things happen. It's not good, and I have a recovery time. So therefore, you know, hey, how you doing? How you doing? Not where you going, how you doing? Now that's what this is all about. You can get clean if you want to. If you want to. Now, again, some of us like smelling.
Just to add real quick, I believe that we need a closure process with different seasons. And so like whether that's therapy, whether that's like a specific exercise where you need to write a letter to someone where you can't necessarily like talk to them verbatim now, but you need to fully close that door, close the ruminants, close those thoughts, bow it down in the name of Jesus, rebuke it, because some stuff is just still on the inside because you didn't get clean. I think that has to take place as well. Just this closing process for you to fully close the door that may need like a creative way that the Lord speaks through you, whether that's, like I said, like a letter writing or whatever it may be, so you can fully feel free in your mind, in your spirit, in your soul.
Another thing that helps me is just personal experience, like constant prayer, prayer without ceasing, because for me, I don't know about the healing part yet, because I'm still dealing with the brokenness, right? And so my brokenness helps me understand that I need to be seeking Christ, right? And so for me, I'm sitting in my sin, not that I'm performing sin, but I'm sitting there because I understand that I'm broken and I need to be fixed. And so that causes me to pray. It causes me to be transparent. It causes me to be authentic, because the sin and the trauma is real for me. So I need something, prayer, to get me through that.
Now, I hope you take what I'm doing. Okay. The reason why I say these things is because I'm in that place. Now understand this. You can't lead yourself to a place where you are not. In spite of how much you want to be there. If you've not experienced, why do you think when you go to countries, they give you guides about how to know what's here and how to know what's there, how to avoid this and how not to do that? It's because they are there and you want to experience the best out of it. So many times we're trying to be self-physicians instead of allowing it to be somebody who's already there to take you. In Jude it says some you gotta snatch out because they really don't know they're in it. And so some of the time we believe and I want to help you. I want to help you, but when I respond to you, it's going to be responding to them. Now, don't take this the wrong way. We use prayer as a crutch when he tells us, James 4:17, to the one who knoweth to do good and doeth it not. To them it is sin. And God's not going to pray you out of what he's giving you the capacity to do. He's already answered it. Luke 12 says, unto whom much is given, much is required. Now I can sit up here and say, God, lift me up on my feet. I'll be sitting here in this chair. Because he just don't let me sit here because he knows I can stand up already. And I keep asking him, Lord, give me the strength to get up. I've given you the strength. He said, get your behind up. So some of our requests, he says, I'm not paying attention until you act on what you already know. When you exhaust that, we're not a candidate for divine intervention until we have eliminated human capacity. Once we exhaust human capacity, we're eligible for divine intervention, and God's not going to move until we exhaust all our human capacity. Everything he's given us said, I've given you this. I call you this. I made you this. Act on it. And do you believe it and do it?
Right.
And do it. Then I'll step in. But don't look for me until you've done this. I'll give you this last example in John chapter 11 when Lazarus died. When Lazarus died, there was a great stone in front of the tomb. And God told them, you roll this stone away. Now, do you know he could have said, stone, step aside, and the stone would have stepped aside. But he knew humanly they could do that, so he said, no, you all do this. I'm going to let you participate. Then he specifically said, Lazarus, come forth. He specifically said, Lazarus. When Lazarus started coming forth, he said to them, take his grave clothes off, because they could do that. They could not call him forth, divine intervention, but they could take the grave clothes off. Human capacity. He said, I'm going to let you do everything you can, and what you cannot do, that's what I'm going to do. You can roll the stone, so I don't need to divinely get the stone rolled. It's enough of you sitting around here now to roll the stone away. And y'all know how to undress somebody. I'm going to let you all do that. I'm going to call him, because you can't call him, but I'm going to do that. Are you picturing this? Because you got to exhaust what he's giving you capacity to do. He'll step in, and he'll do it from there. Jesus was doing therapy all of the time. What do you believe in John chapter 4, the conversation with the woman at the well? That was a biblical therapeutic session. What do you think it was when the woman was caught in adultery in John chapter 8? That was a therapeutic session. What do you think it was in John chapter 3 when he talked to Nicodemus? That was a therapeutic session. That was CBT before they knew what CBT was. Okay, all right, so I'm kind of...
So I do have a question, don't judge me. And
Too late, but go on.
Okay.
No, we just
Judge
playing.
nothing before it's time.
No, we just playing.
So in today's society, okay, the 1 Corinthians 7:9 says, better to marry than to burn. So I say that for a reason. In today's society, you see so much happening within the church, and so many people refuse to take accountability. So what's the difference between a woman marrying a high moral person that's in the world versus a man of God in the church if they are acting like people in the world?
I tried to give it to him. Okay, you said, what is the difference? Oh, pretty simple. The difference is very distinct. The difference is...
The difference between, what I mean is, pay attention to that last point. If the men of God are acting like the people in the world and will not take accountability, mistakes happen, I get that. But they refuse to take accountability. They go there, they cheat on their wives, and then they still preach it, and no one is holding them accountable. Meanwhile, you got people in the world who, with high standards, who still take accountability. What's the difference?
So you have a two-part question.
Right.
One, you're talking about a lack of accountability on the part when you talk about the spiritual or carnal nature of. So what you describe is the carnality of a saint. So
what I'm describing is the level of conviction.
I got it, but let me finish, because I got your question crystal clear.
Okay.
I'm walking through it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 1 Corinthians chapter 3 describes what you're talking about. When it says, are ye still not carnal? The behavior resembles the world. It says, you walk like men. In other words, like the world. So what you're describing is clearly spelled out in 1 Corinthians chapter 3. There's a level of carnality. A person could be headed to heaven, but living as though they're on hell's path. So it's very clear about what you're talking about. But that's one issue over here. So that is true. That's true. It's not dismissive of it. But if you ask, what is the difference between that high person living high moral standard, is that they don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ. That is the difference between these two individuals that you're describing. carnality looks like an unsaved individual is simply because they have not dealt with the strongholds in their life. Once they have dealt with the strongholds in their life, they will not resemble what you are describing. In that same passage, it talks about the need to be subject to in order for cleansing to occur. So this is just the clarity of it all, because you're accurate, but we have to understand what discipleship looks like. Discipleship looks like I'm struggling, I'm stumbling, but I finally got it. Now I don't resemble what I was. But now I'm something different. Now, is there a lot of what you described? Absolutely. I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't fool with church folk. I don't fool with church folk. I don't fool with them. I look for the saints. I don't fool with church folk because they don't look like what they say. But on the other hand, I know one day it could change. It could change in one day. Because if a decision is made, it'll be totally different from what you saw them the last time, and you won't even remember, you won't even resemble them, you won't even know them. But on the other hand, when it talks about being unequally yoked, then that highly moral person still doesn't fit the fundamental criteria of what God puts together. It would have been put together by humanity in their intellectual thinking, but it would not be God ordained in spite of how high the morals are. There are a lot of people who are not in the church who live more moral lives than people who are in the church. However, that does not change the reality that there's an inconsistent lack of unity that is there because they are not equally yoked, because the fundamental relationship that needs to be had with Jesus Christ does not exist. So you can go on and somebody could do it and they could still be okay, but there will be in a divided house. When it all boils down, it will be a divided house because there is not the same God, the God of this world, and then there's the God of who we know. Because in that house, it would still be divided, although they could live high morally, but they cannot celebrate together. Yeah. Yeah, Jesus even talked about the fact. Why call me Lord, do not what I say? And then he said there are many who will say. It's very clear. It's very clear. If I had a choice, I'd live with a bumbling saint than with a moral heathen.
I just think to add just a little bit, like, where does our hope lie in the midst of a world that we're in? Because the Church of Corinth was similar, I think, to today's society. They was going wild, and God still called to holiness, called us to be holy because He is holy. So even though it may be so many people around us in society doing the higher moral standard, God still has a standard that He desires, and we shouldn't lose hope. I don't know like the ratio, but I know for a lot of women, it is hard to believe that God is still in the midst of the men in this world. But I know that the fact is true that the Lord is still with us. The Lord is still big. He's bigger than our thoughts. He's bigger than anything we can ever imagine. His love is rooted in us, and we should still believe in Him doing a perfect work. And if you believe that you're called to marriage, that He's going to bring that perfect gift because He's the greatest gift giver. So I think we just need to remember that our hope is rooted in a God that can do so much more than what society is showing. We know that what faith is, right? The evidence of things that we hope for, the things we cannot see. So we can't let the world show an image and a picture that is faulty. It's off. It's off coordinate. Only God is on coordinate, and I would not believe at all ever that He won't send the perfect gift of a husband because of what the world is doing. The world they so behind. They so behind, y'all. God is always ahead, but the world is too behind. So we just got to keep hoping in the Lord, whether it's in a state of marriage or a state of singleness, because He's still the greatest gift giver.
And so, I'm so glad that you said that part, and let me tie something in before you get this question. Many of us claim that God will give us the desires of our heart. I agree with right? We say God will give us the desires of our heart, and my desire is to be married. Got it. But His sovereignty transcends the desires. And the desires are supposed to be in alignment with John 15, alignment. Would you believe, could you even possibly think that an omniscient, omnipotent God could forget what he has for you. Is it possible? So we could dance with the desires and all of that, but is it possible for him to miss it? Are you all following it? Is it possible? Some were never designed for marriage. And what happened is we got distracted by what we see, and we called it a desire, but it was a fleshly desire. Peace precedes appointment.
Yep, I had a question in getting back to courtship, and so I wanted to know what does developing trust in, like, in the courtship or maybe with the person, what does that look like, or when did you know, like, you trusted the person? Or maybe, then I was pondering as I was waiting, but then I thought, waiting to ask my question, but then I thought you probably want to have trust in the Lord to know, like, confidently that if that's your person, you know, to, like, I guess get to the marriage, to get to the step of marriage. So, like, what is the trust?
Yeah, you've already
Trust look like?
you've answered your own question.
Yeah.
You've answered your own question. The reality is, okay, in understanding what it means to have lordship in your life, or he's the great shepherd, and the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, you're really not responsible for yourself. You're responsible for cooperating with God. Too many times, we want to take the throne and decide what's best for us ahead of time, and haven't gone to the one who sits on the great throne. And because he has promised in Philippians 4, if you commit all of this to him, here's what he said. He said, I'm going to give you peace that surpasses all understanding. I'm going to give you peace that surpasses all understanding. But then he said, when I give you that peace, I'm going to tell you how you don't have to lose it. I'm going to tell you how to think. I'm going to release my peace that you can't explain. And then I'm going to tell you how to think so that it doesn't go away. Think on these things. And part of it, we don't think on these things. We keep thinking what we don't have. And he's saying, well, you miss what secures the peace. Think like this, and you won't think like that. Remember the assignment you all had? Think like this, and you won't think like that. That's just the deal. That's it. See, that's that discipline of, do I want to please him? Am I in it for myself? I mean, that's the deal. Am I in it for myself, or do I want to please him? If I want to please him, I got to lock down on what he said. We do this in every other area of our life. We do whatever we got to do to get a paycheck. Whatever they say, wiggle and squirm, dance and pop, hop and flame. We'll do to get that check. And we'll adjust and we'll say we don't like it, but we do it. But hear the Lord, the lover of our soul, who sent his only son to die for us. And all he's saying in John 15, if you abide in me and my word abide in you, all you got to do is do this. I'm making it simple. Love your neighbor as yourself on these two things. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, and your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22, 36 to 40. He said, you do this, you good. He said, don't get caught up in all this stuff. He said, I'm going to simplify it for you. Lock it in, and I got you covered. Lock it in. Be about this. That's just the deal. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Because it is. Amen.
All right, any other questions in here? All right, well, the next question on the list from you guys' submission is, what are examples of red flags when getting to know someone?
There's one thing to be private, and there's just one thing to be in isolation. If someone constantly wants to keep you isolated from who they are or who they hang around, red flag. Because there's two yous. There's the eulogize you, and there's the resume you. The resume you is the person that you want people to perceive you as. Hi, I'm Dr. Hamilton. Nice to meet you. You know, I have this academia behind me. But eulogize you. You ever been to a black funeral and somebody get up and say something
And tell the truth.
and tell the truth about that person? I didn't know that happened. I didn't know they did that. When somebody constantly tries to isolate you from the real them or the people that their surroundings, Red flag.
So, how important is it to attend the same church as your potential spouse?
That would be optimum. However, I do know couples who do attend two different denominations, two different churches, and it works for them. And so I think it just depends on those two people and how they can navigate having two different, some people are okay with it, some people are not. And as the pastor said, as long as they're a Christian, Jesus said, "In my name we lift up our draw men to me." And if they're not against us, they're with us. So if Christ is lifted up in their life and they go to a different denomination, as long as Jesus is the center, if they can work through that, there's nothing wrong with that.
So, that's the romantic response. The reality is, if you're going to eat, you should eat out of the same pot, so that you don't have a language barrier. There's a language barrier in terms of how to season, how to talk about, how we engage each other. And we can't talk about how we're growing together if we're there, because if we're not walking along, Amos 3:3 says, how can two walk together except they be in agreement? So therefore, we need to know what our spiritual diet is. Is that survivable? That is survivable. But God's best would be you're eating from the same table. And that should be resolved before you start talking about being in this. That everything's on the table until you say, this is us now. At that stage, some resolution needs to occur. You need to eat from the same table. Panelist request, go on.
What if you can't come to that? We are going to the same conversation. I'm just.
Okay, clearly, what should have happened, then you never should have connected. That should be resolved before you say I do. Before you say I do, that should be cleaned up.
Okay, so you're saying don't get married to someone who attends a different congregation than you.
You need to have clarity before you say I do. You need to clean those things up, because you may not believe it's a wedge, but it is a wedge, because they both are, because what you have, okay, if you saw something with two heads, would you call that normal? No. You'd have two pastors in the household. One for this one for another. So there are two orders in subjection, and that's where it requires a contradiction. Because who do you yield? Where's there the allegiance? And you got duality, you got dual allegiance.
All right, so we have about 10 minutes left with our time together. There is a, question, go ahead.
Okay, on that same note, growing up, I've always heard that it's the woman that has to come to the church where the man attends. Is that something that you feel solid about? Or if, say for instance, the ladies, like, I just don't feel that I'm going at this church. I know that this is where you attend, but is it also the man's responsibility, the husband's responsibility to make sure his wife is being fed as she needs to be fed? So, in other words, finding a place that they both can connect with.
That's a good question.
I would say yes. Because I grew up in a church, as the pastor was saying, family lineage was on my mom's side, family lineage, and I got comfortable there, I got stuck there, in so many words, and when my wife and I moved back to St. Louis, she had never been there, and so it was like a culture shock, her coming to, the way they did things, the way they operated. And I can tell she was going there for me. I was a youth pastor, I was, third generation in the church, people knew who I was. But it was evident, she sang in the choir, she did all this other stuff, but she was not happy there. and it was evident. But once we got to a place, church-wise, that we both were growing, we got to another church, we joined another church, to where we were both growing. And to be honest with you, the church that I was at, I really wasn't growing there. I was going. I was working, I was, being the youth pastor, assisting the pastor, doing what I was trained to do, but I really wasn't growing. But where we are now, exponential growth for the both of us. And it's evident even seen through our son. He's 3 years old, quoting Bible scriptures, loves church. And I can just imagine had we still been where I was. And we even said, my wife and I had even discussed this, on Sundays before we transitioned to the church, the ministry we're in now, it was like an obligation getting up on Sunday morning. Oh, we gotta go to church, we have to be at Sunday school. Now it's a joy, we get to close out Saturday night, and we look forward to it. There's anticipation in going. So I would say yes, it is important that now I grew up under that old regime too. Wives, follow your husband whatever ministry he had, that's where you're supposed to go. But it's as the leader, as the man, as the head of the house, it's your job to make sure that your family is growing in Christ. Not just you, not just your wife, but your family is growing in Christ. Christ is the head of the man is the head of the woman, but we are to be led by Christ, and that's in all that we say.
So I want to hammer. This is great. I'm gonna pick up exactly where you left off, because what I heard is I know this whole submission thing is a biggie. Right? All right, talk to me now. I want to talk about it.
Same here, ladies.
Okay, you got it. All right, so let's give the remedy and what that really fully means. He's responsible, just like a manager. He's the steward. He's the steward over the household, over the family. He's the steward. And I get it. The steward means making sure everything operates properly. That is not authoritative, domineering. It's none of that. It's stewardship to make sure everything's operating properly. Just like a manager in an operation compels everybody to shine under his watch. So his responsibility is to make sure that she shines, and whatever puts her in a position to be able to do that is what it does. The tendency is to rush to Ephesians 5:22 says, wives, submit to your husband. That's the tendency. But it precedes 21. And 21 needs to start at 18. Do not be drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs and making melodies in your heart. And then it comes to submitting yourself one to another. Are you following it? There's a precedent that sets it up for certain things to take place. If we're walking in the Spirit, singing and making melody in our heart, we don't have an issue of talking about how we do things, because we do things together, still knowing that if the house falls apart, he's going to be responsible because he's the steward. But we don't have this issue of fussing about, you better, or else, what that stuff. And so if you hear a male, we qualify male versus godly man. A male will drill down submission. A male with his predatory self, he will drill down submission. But a godly man understands stewardship. Okay, that's so that you can understand. Okay.
Just to add real quick, with submission, I first heard in the book The Meaning of Marriage about how we both are Jesus to one another as man and wife. And the wife is acting like Jesus because he submitted to the Father when he died. That was a submission to the Father, right? And then, of course, the male, the husband, he is acting as Christ who died for the church and loved her. And so we have to remember in the submission game, like we're both being Jesus to one another, and it'll be equilibrium once we fall into those proper roles, because it's a submission, it's a beautiful submission unto one another as we are like Christ in those acts of marriage. So just remember that as an encouragement when you're getting married or just thinking about it, that you're really just being Jesus and it will flow perfectly if you do it that way.
And see, she was grown when I met her. Are you following? She was grown. Now, if she was grown when I met her, what do I look like trying to tell her what to do? You got this? She's already grown. I didn't marry a child. I didn't marry an adolescent. She wasn't underage. Okay, that's another story, but that's what you did, right?
I said this, when my wife and I were engaged, she told me she had this dream that I was at my old former church, and I was just like going from like door to door, and I kind of like left her behind. I got so engulfed in ministry that I was leaving her behind, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I promise I'm not gonna do that. And I say that to say, once we made the transition to what we both were being fed, I found myself trying to keep up work. Since we transitioned to the right ministry, you know, she's accepted her call. She's preaching now. So being in the right place together makes the difference. Now I'm having a dream about her running.
You're trying to keep up with her, right?
All right, so our time is winding down, so unless anybody on the panel has something that they really, really want to say. All right, well, thank you for your time.